In the heart of a dusty frontier town, Clara Quinn's world was defined as much by the sun-baked streets and raucous saloons as by her mixed heritage. The townsfolk often whispered in corners, their prejudices surfacing in the curve of their lips and the narrowed gaze of their eyes. Clara, with her dark curls and almond-shaped eyes, felt the weight of their scrutiny pressing down on her like a leaden shroud. In a society that rigidly categorized individuals into neat boxes, she existed in a liminal space, caught between identities, neither fully embraced by the white settlers nor accepted by the indigenous peoples nearby. Growth had been hard-won, her spirit resilient through both adversity and isolation. Yet as Clara navigated the delicate fabric of daily life, she remained hyper-aware of the dangers that hovered just beyond her door. Tales of violence perpetrated against those perceived as different were common currency in town, a grim reminder that safety was precarious. Just hours before the ambush, she had overheard men talking in hushed tones about cleansing the settlement of undesirables. The words sent icy tendrils of fear creeping up her spine. The memory of her mother, proud and defiant, flashed through Clara's mind like a specter from the past, urging her to carve out her own place in a world that often felt hostile. Clara had pledged to remain strong and unyielding, but even she couldn't foresee the cataclysm that would shatter her fragile sense of security. When she was ambushed that fateful night, everything changed in an instant. Bursting with adrenaline and terror, she escaped through winding alleyways bathed in moonlight, her heart racing as she clutched the bond of family that had motivated her all along. Her only choice was to don a facade as a man to shield herself from prying eyes while she took to the trail as Clyde, joining a mail-run convoy intent on defying the dangers of Apache territory. As Clara settled into her new role among strangers who would soon become allies and enemies, she began to unearth layers of both herself and her circumstances. The journey ahead was fraught with hidden truths and looming dangers, propelling Clara into an odyssey that would ultimately define not just her identity, but also the fate of those around her. The night air was thick with tension as Clara darted through the narrow alleyways, her heart pounding like a war drum. She had always been aware of the lurking dangers in her town, but nothing prepared her for the brutal reality of the assassination attempt. Shadows loomed large as she recalled the faces of men she thought she knew, their betrayal cut deeper than any knife. The sharp echo of gunfire still rang in her ears, a haunting reminder that safety was an illusion. In the moments that followed her escape, adrenaline fueled her every decision. Clara knew she couldn't return home, not after what had just happened. Her only hope lay in reinventing herself entirely. As she rummaged through a discarded bundle of supplies, her fingers brushed against a fraying shirt and weathered trousers, remnants of a man's attire. In that instant, an idea sparked within her, to disguise herself as a man, to shed the vulnerability that accompanied her womanhood in this unforgiving world. Under the dim light of the moon, Clara transformed. She tied back her dark curls and donned the rough clothing, feeling an unsettling mix of liberation and trepidation. No longer Clara Quinn, she would become Clyde, a name that felt foreign yet empowering. This new identity would cloak her from prying eyes and malevolent intentions, allowing her to navigate the perilous landscape without drawing unwanted attention. With each gallant stride away from danger, Clara's resolve strengthened. She set her sights on a mail-run convoy rumored to traverse Apache territory, an audacious undertaking that could lead to both freedom and peril. Joining the convoy meant embracing uncertainty, but it also offered a chance to forge connections with others who might understand her plight. As Clara melded into the group under her new guise, she overheard snippets of conversation about the trials faced by men on the trail, battles with mercenaries, treacherous weather, and whispers of a lost military map that held greater implications than anyone imagined. Little did they know, that map had found its way into her possession, intertwining their fates in ways she couldn't yet comprehend. The journey ahead promised to be fraught with hidden truths and dangers lurking just beyond the horizon, pushing Clara further along a path that would redefine not only who she was, but also the very course of history itself. As dawn broke over the horizon, casting a golden hue across the rugged landscape, Clara, now Clyde, found herself merging into the bustling chaos of the mail-run convoy. The air was thick with the scent of sweat, leather, and a palpable sense of camaraderie among the couriers. Each rider stood as a testament to resilience, their faces etched with stories marked by hardship and survival. Among the group, Clara noticed a burly man named Hank, whose laughter boomed like thunder, masking an undeniable weight of grief. He had lost his family to marauders, and every ride felt like penance for his perceived failures. Then there was Elise, sharp-eyed and quick-witted, who had chosen the life of a courier to evade a past mired in scandal. Her playful banter often lifted spirits, even as her keen instincts kept the convoy on high alert. As they prepared for their journey, Clara listened intently, absorbing the dynamics and tensions within the group. Each member carried personal burdens that would either forge them together or tear them apart during the trials ahead. She marveled at their courage and vowed to conceal her true identity until it was safe to reveal herself. As the convoy set off, the rhythmic thudding of hooves against the earth was almost soothing. Yet Clara's mind raced with thoughts of the stolen military map hidden deep within her belongings. She sensed that this journey was about more than just delivering letters or supplies. It held an undercurrent of impending conflict, an undeniable truth that gnawed at her conscience. Hours turned into days as they traversed vast stretches of land filled with canyons and rugged mountains. Each evening, after setting up camp under twinkling stars, the group would share stories around the crackling fire. Clara felt compelled to participate, fabricating tales from her new persona's past while cautiously sidestepping any inquiries that probed deeper. However, one particular courier caught her eye, Matteo, a mysterious figure with dark hair and a knowing gaze. He often seemed to linger near Clara, studying her with an intensity that sent shivers down her spine. There was something familiar about him that unsettled her, triggering memories of an unresolved past. As they rode further into Apache territory, Clara could feel a storm brewing. Enemy forces lay beyond the mountains, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Wrapped in the guise of Clyde, she steeled herself for the challenges ahead, aware that every decision could mean life or death, not just for herself but for everyone in the convoy. As the days rolled into a seemingly endless journey, Clara settled into her role as Clyde, but unease simmered beneath the surface. One evening, while rummaging through her gear to retrieve a spare shirt, her fingers brushed against something hard and folded. Curiosity piqued, she pulled out a worn piece of parchment, an old military map she had unknowingly carried with her since her escape. Her heart raced as she unfurled the map, revealing intricate markings and annotations that hinted at troop movements and supply routes. The realization struck her like lightning. This map was not just an ordinary piece of paper. It was a key to strategic information that could tip the scales in an ongoing conflict. The enormity of what she held sent a shiver down her spine. Clara could feel the weight of history resting in her hands, intertwining her fate with that of a larger conspiracy involving stolen military intelligence. Panic set in as she glanced around the campfire, where laughter and stories momentarily masked the tension hanging in the air. She couldn't divulge this secret without endangering herself and everyone in the convoy. What if mercenaries were already onto them? What if Matteo had recognized something more than just Clara's disguise? That night, sleep eluded Clara as thoughts spiraled around the implications of the map. She recalled overhearing fragments of conversation among the couriers about impending skirmishes with Apache tribes and shadowy figures seeking to control those territories for their own gain. Her instincts told her that forces were at play beyond mere mail delivery. They were embroiled in a struggle for power. The next morning, as light filtered through dusty skies, Clara approached Elise under the pretense of needing advice on navigating through treacherous terrain. She carefully broached the topic of unknown hazards they might face along their route and listened intently for any mention of military interests or conspiracies. Elise's eyes narrowed slightly, suspicion flickering across her features before she responded with a mix of caution and curiosity. It became clear that even she sensed the pulse of danger throbbing beneath their normal routine. As they rode onward, Clara resolved to keep vigilant, both about protecting herself from discovery and safeguarding the map's secrets. The deeper they traveled into Apache territory, the more Clara felt trapped within a web woven by unseen hands, leaving her grappling with questions about loyalty, betrayal, and ultimately what kind of truth she would deliver when faced with choices that could ignite war or perhaps quell it altogether. As the convoy pressed deeper into Apache territory, Clara felt a growing unease not just from the environment around her, but from the presence of Matteo, the enigmatic courier whose piercing gaze seemed to see right through her disguise. He had a way of moving quietly, as if he were more shadow than man, and his charisma was laced with an air of mystery that both intrigued and unsettled her. Clara first noticed him during a break in their journey when he approached her under the pretense of sharing a drink. His voice was smooth and his smile disarming, but there was something in the intensity of his dark eyes that made her heart race. As they spoke, he casually dropped hints that suggested he knew more about her than he let on. Every time their eyes met, she felt a shiver of recognition. Was it possible that he knew who she really was? That night, Clara lay awake in her bedroll, replaying their conversation in her mind. Had he recognized her from the town? Did he know about the ambush? Or was he simply a perceptive man with an uncanny ability to read people? The tension between them sparked a sense of paranoia. Should she confide in him or keep her distance? The following days were fraught with uncertainty. Clara observed Matteo closely, noting how he interacted with the others. He had quickly become a favorite among the couriers, charming them with tales of past journeys filled with peril and adventure. Yet his gaze always found its way back to her, a constant reminder of her secret. The group seemed oblivious to the tempest brewing beneath the surface, but Clara felt increasingly isolated by her fears. During one particularly tense day, as they rode through rocky terrain and watched for signs of danger, Matteo pulled alongside her again. "You seem troubled," he remarked, his tone casual yet probing. Clara's heart raced as she weighed her response. She needed allies in this dangerous terrain, but could she trust him? In the ensuing silence, Clara grappled with the duality of her situation. Revealing too much could endanger not only herself but also the entire convoy. But if Matteo truly recognized her, he could either be a formidable ally or an insidious threat. As they pressed onward toward their destination, Clara's instincts screamed for caution. The path ahead promised not just external dangers but internal conflicts as well, forcing her to confront not just who she was pretending to be, but who she truly aspired to become amid a web of deception and intrigue. The tension in the air thickened as Clara, still in her guise as Clyde, rode at the front of the convoy, her instincts screaming that danger lurked just beyond the horizon. The rugged landscape surrounding them felt increasingly threatening, and whispers among the couriers hinted at a relentless pursuit by mercenaries intent on recovering the military map Clara secretly carried. One evening, under the shroud of twilight, the group made camp along a narrow ridge, their laughter mingling with the crackling fire. But Clara felt a knot tightening in her stomach. She had overheard snatches of conversation about ruthless men hunting for them, desperate to reclaim what had been lost, a sentiment that made her heart race as she recalled the details of the map. That night, just as sleep threatened to claim her, Clara was jolted awake by distant sounds, horse hooves thundering against the ground and angry shouts echoing through the stillness. Fear surged through her veins as she swiftly shook Hank awake. "We have to move," she whispered urgently, already prepared to grab her gear. The convoy sprang into action, confusion enveloping them as they scrambled to mount their horses. The mercenaries were upon them in seconds, their silhouettes stark against the moonlit sky. Clara's mind raced as she scanned for ways to defend herself and her companions. There was no time for hesitation. As they fled the camp, arrows flew past them like angry hornets seeking a target. Clara's adrenaline surged as she urged her horse forward, desperately trying to put distance between themselves and the gunfire. Matteo fell into step beside her, his presence both a comfort and an enigma. "Stay close," he shouted over the chaos, his steely resolve evident. In a moment of clarity amidst panic, Clara spotted a narrow path winding through dense brush ahead, a potential escape route. She signaled to Matteo and Hank, steering her horse toward it while forcing herself to focus on survival instead of the mounting fear. They ducked into the underbrush just as another volley of arrows struck nearby. Breathless and shaken, they pushed deeper into the wilderness. Clara could hardly fathom how far they might have to ride before shaking off their pursuers or finding safety again. But with every heartbeat echoing in her ears, she knew one thing. She had to confront not only the mercenaries chasing them, but also her own fears. The journey ahead was no longer just about survival. It was an awakening to her own resourcefulness and grit under pressure. As dawn broke overhead in painted streaks of orange across an indigo sky, Clara resolved to embrace whatever lay ahead with courage, and perhaps even a plan to leverage what knowledge she gained from that dangerous night against those who sought to exploit it for their own gain. As the convoy ventured further into Apache territory, Clara found herself awash in the stark beauty of the landscape, a setting both breathtaking and foreboding. Towering mesas loomed in the distance, their red and orange hues contrasting sharply against the deep blue sky, while winding canyons carved through the earth like scars. Each turn in the trail revealed vistas that inspired awe and dread, reminding Clara of the dual nature of her journey. This rugged terrain mirrored her own internal struggles. Each step forward was a confrontation with her identity and fears. The path was treacherous, with loose stones and sudden drop-offs testing both their horses' agility and the rider's resolve. Clara felt every jolt travel through her body as they navigated the rocky outcrops. The relentless sun beat down upon them, each mile ridden under its glare intensifying her realization that she was not just escaping danger, she was on a quest for self-discovery. With each passing moment in this untamed wilderness, Clara could feel herself shedding layers of fear and doubt. The shadows of her past no longer had absolute control. One evening, after a long day's ride, they made camp near a tranquil stream. As Clara sat by the water's edge, gazing into its depths, she saw more than just her reflection. She saw glimpses of who she aspired to be. The waters flowed freely, unrestrained by boundaries or expectations, much like the person she yearned to become. In these quiet moments of solitude amidst the chaos, Clara contemplated her choice to disguise herself as Clyde. It was a decision born out of necessity, but also one that allowed her to explore what it meant to navigate a world that often rejected authenticity. Yet danger lurked just beyond their serene campsite. The whispered tales of Apache resistance and mercenary pursuits were woven into the fabric of their travels. Each rustle in the underbrush heightened Clara's senses. She understood that survival would require not only physical endurance but also emotional strength. The very essence of who she was hung in balance. Could she reconcile her past while stepping boldly into an uncertain future? As dawn broke over the horizon once more, painting the sky with strokes of orange and gold, Clara felt a renewed determination stirring within her. She resolved to face whatever challenges lay ahead with courage and tenacity, embracing both the beauty and peril of her journey through this hauntingly beautiful Apache territory, a landscape that mirrored her own fight for identity and freedom. With each heartbeat echoing in tandem with the land around her, Clara knew that this trail would lead not just to a destination, but toward an awakening of self that could alter her very existence. As the convoy began to settle into a tentative rhythm amidst the trials of their journey, Clara found herself drawn into conversations with her fellow couriers that sometimes veered into deeply personal territory. The long nights under the stars often prompted sharing stories, and it was during one such gathering that she learned more about Hank's past. His laughter, which often masked his pain, faded as he spoke of his lost family and the prejudice they faced. "They thought we were less than human," he confessed quietly, his voice low and tinged with bitterness. "I've spent my life trying to prove them wrong." Clara felt her heart ache for him. His struggles echoed her own experiences of being marginalized because of her mixed heritage. Elise chimed in next, her sharp wit momentarily softened by vulnerability. "I once thought I could escape my past by running away," she said, glancing off into the darkness, "but it only followed me. You can't outrun who you are." Clara nodded, those words resonated deeply within her. It struck her how similar their battles were, each grappling with their identities against a backdrop of societal expectation and rejection. As they shared more around the flickering campfire, Clara felt a connection growing, not just to Hank and Elise but to a collective struggle that brought them closer despite their different backgrounds. They discussed race, belonging, and acceptance under the vast expanse of stars, illuminating shades of identity that seemed both burdensome and beautiful. In these moments of openness, Clara perceived fragments of herself woven into their narratives. It became clearer to Clara that this voyage was not merely physical, it was profoundly transformative. Each revelation about her companions' lives chipped away at the facades they all put on daily. No longer was she just Clyde, hiding from danger. She was part of a tapestry rich with shared fears and aspirations. But as enlightening as these discussions were, an undeniable tension hovered in the air. The threat from mercenaries still loomed large as they rode deeper into Apache territory. The danger intensified each day they traveled, bringing a sense of urgency to their conversations about identity. Clara knew she needed to embrace her past and accept herself fully if she hoped to forge ahead unscathed. With each shared story by the flickering flames, Clara understood that acceptance began within. She resolved to confront not only external dangers, but also the entrenched fears within herself, finding strength in who she was and forging connections with those brave enough to share their truths alongside her on this perilous journey towards self-discovery and freedom. The tension within the convoy had been mounting for days, a silent undercurrent that Clara could no longer ignore. As the group settled around the evening campfire one night, she noticed how Mateo lingered at the edges of their conversations, his eyes flickering with an intensity that made her heart race. While they had shared moments of camaraderie, Clara felt a growing sense of unease, a feeling that he was watching not just as a companion but as someone with ulterior motives. It was during one of these evenings that Clara's suspicions were confirmed. The air was thick with laughter and stories, but Clara's mind remained clouded with worry about the military map hidden in her gear. Just as she began to feel comfortable, Hank's shout shattered the calm. "Hey, where's my gear?" Alarm surged through Clara as they all turned to see one of the couriers, Rico, sneaking away into the darkness with a bundle in hand. "Stop him!" Clara shouted, her voice piercing through the night. Without thinking, she sprang to her feet and dashed after Rico, her heart pounding in her chest. The moonlight illuminated their frantic chase as Clara pursued him through the rugged terrain, adrenaline guiding her every step. "Rico," she yelled, closing the distance between them. "What are you doing?" Rico stumbled but regained his footing. "You don't understand. That map could change everything for me," he replied breathlessly, desperation etched on his face. The realization hit Clara like a cold wave. Rico was willing to betray them all for personal gain. In that moment of confrontation, Clara felt a mix of fear and determination surge within her. "You won't get away with this," she declared, inching closer. The weight of what was at stake pressed heavily on her shoulders. It wasn't just about the map anymore, but also about trust and survival. Just as Rico turned to make his escape again, Mateo emerged from the shadows, blocking his path. "Let's talk this over," Mateo said coolly, stepping forward with a commanding presence that caused Rico to hesitate. Feeling solidarity with Mateo despite her lingering doubts about him, Clara steadied herself and approached cautiously. "You can't steal from us," she asserted firmly. "We're in this together." A tense standoff ensued as they all stood under the glittering stars, caught between betrayal and loyalty. Clara's resolve hardened. She would not allow fear or treachery to dictate their fate any longer. This was a pivotal moment, not only for her journey, but for defining who she was becoming amid adversity. As dawn began to break on the horizon, illuminating their path ahead while casting shadows on past deceptions, Clara knew they must unify against external threats if they hoped to survive and achieve their shared goal. A truth that could either ignite or quell the flames of conflict waiting just beyond their reach. The tension in the air was palpable as Clara and her fellow couriers rode deeper into Apache territory, the looming threat of mercenaries ever present. Clara's instincts told her that a confrontation was imminent. The sound of hooves and distant shouts echoed through the canyon walls, reverberating like a war drum. She tightened her grip on the reins, her heart racing as she exchanged worried glances with Hank and Elise. Suddenly, from behind a rocky outcrop, a group of mercenaries emerged, their faces hardened and intent. "Stop right there," one of them shouted, brandishing a weapon. Clara's stomach dropped. They had come for the map. In that moment, she felt the weight of her choices pressing down on her, protecting her newfound friends or ensuring her own safety. "Clyde," Mateo yelled, breaking through her thoughts. "We need to form a line, get ready." His voice was calm yet urgent, cutting through Clara's rising panic. As they quickly maneuvered their horses into formation, Clara glanced at the map tucked away in her gear. It was more than just a piece of paper. It was a key to either salvation or destruction. The mercenaries charged forward, and Clara felt a surge of adrenaline course through her veins. She had to fight not just for herself, but for everything she had come to cherish during this journey. Drawing upon the resilience she had witnessed in her companions, Clara steeled herself for the battle ahead. As arrows whizzed past them, Clara's mind raced with strategies, desperately searching for an edge. She spotted an elevated position nearby, a rocky ledge that could provide cover and vantage. "Follow me," she shouted, urging her horse toward the outcrop. The others followed suit, desperate to gain any advantage in this fierce showdown. Once atop the ledge, they prepared to defend themselves against the onslaught below. The mercenaries regrouped, visibly frustrated by their sudden retreat. Clara's heart pounded as she took a deep breath. This was it, the moment that would define her resolve. With arrows flying and shouts filling the air, Clara felt clarity wash over her. She realized that this fight was about more than survival. It was about loyalty and integrity. If she failed here, it wouldn't just cost her life, it could endanger everyone she cared about. Just as the mercenaries attempted to flank them, Clara called out to Mateo and Hank, "On my mark." Timing was crucial. They would have one chance to push back against their attackers. The echoes of their shared stories around the fire filled Clara's mind. She wouldn't let fear dictate her actions any longer. In that fierce moment of confrontation, as arrows flew and courage ignited within them all, Clara chose to protect not only herself but also the bonds they had forged together, bonds that would either withstand this test or shatter under pressure. With a cry of determination, she prepared to face whatever came next, knowing that this battle could change everything for them all. As the convoy finally reached their destination, a remote outpost where vital intelligence could be exchanged, Clara's heart raced with both hope and trepidation. The vastness of the desert stretched before her, and she felt a weight pressing down on her shoulders as she held the military map that had driven so much of their perilous journey. This was the moment she had anticipated, yet it was fraught with uncertainty. The outpost bustled with activity. Soldiers and scouts moved about, exchanging hurried words and glances filled with urgency. Clara dismounted her horse, feeling the stares of strangers pierce through her disguise as Clyde. She could sense the gravity of their mission weighing heavily on everyone. As they approached the commanding officer, a tall man with a steely demeanor, Clara's stomach churned at the thought of revealing what lay within her gear. Hank and Elise gathered around her, their faces etched with concern. "Are you sure about this?" Hank asked quietly, eyeing the map tucked beneath Clara's coat. His question echoed Clara's own internal conflict. Should she expose its contents or keep this crucial information hidden to prevent further bloodshed? Would revealing it result in an escalation of violence that could threaten not just them but countless others? As she contemplated her choices, Clara recalled the stories shared around the campfire, their shared struggles against prejudice and danger. It struck her that by holding onto the map, she possessed not just strategic information but also a piece of each of their identities. The weight grew heavier in her hands, symbolizing all they had endured together. Just then Mateo stepped closer, his expression earnest. "Whatever you decide, we stand by you," he said firmly, his gaze locking onto hers. In that moment, Clara realized that this decision was not only about strategy, but also about trust and integrity within their tight-knit group. With renewed determination coursing through her veins, Clara took a deep breath and approached the commanding officer. As he inquired about their findings from the journey, Clara hesitated for just a moment before presenting the map. The sight of it brought silence to those nearby. It was more than a document, it represented hopes for peace amid chaos. "I found this," Clara began, her voice steady despite the tumult inside her. "It details troop movements that could alter everything." The room fell into an intense quiet as all eyes locked onto her. The implications were clear. Exposing this information could either foster alliances or incite further conflict among factions vying for control. As she met the gazes of Hank, Elise, and Mateo behind her, Clara knew she had chosen to embrace truth over fear, a courageous step toward forging a future built on integrity rather than deception. In that pivotal moment of revelation and vulnerability, Clara understood that while danger still loomed ahead, their shared commitment to each other would light the path forward, one filled with hope rather than despair in a world steeped in division. As Clara stood at the outpost, having delivered the military map and exposed its contents, a profound sense of change washed over her. The weight of her journey hung heavily in her heart, yet she felt lighter, as if shedding layers of fear and doubt that had confined her for so long. She looked around at her fellow couriers, Hank, Elise, Mateo, and realized how deeply intertwined their fates had become through shared trials and tribulations. In the aftermath of their confrontation with the mercenaries, a new resolve began to blossom within Clara. The choices she had made during their perilous journey, the decisions to fight for her friends, to embrace her identity, to reveal the truth, had not only shaped the course of their mission but also transformed who she was as a person. No longer did she feel like just Clyde hiding behind a mask. She was Clara Quinn, a woman who understood both the strength and beauty of her mixed heritage. As they prepared to leave the outpost, conversations between them sparkled with renewed hope. Clara found herself sharing ideas about what lay ahead, how they could use the information gleaned from the map for peaceful negotiations rather than conflict. "We have a chance to create change," Clara expressed passionately. "Let's ensure this truth leads to healing instead of more bloodshed." Her voice resonated with determination and purpose. The journey toward self-acceptance had not been easy, but it had brought Clara closer to understanding herself and her place in a divided world. Each interaction with her comrades revealed layers of complexity in their own identities and struggles, reflecting back pieces of her own story in ways that enriched her understanding of belonging. As they rode on into the openness of the desert landscape before them, Clara recognized that acceptance would be an ongoing journey. There would undoubtedly be challenges ahead. Prejudices still existed, not only externally but internally as well, but she felt equipped to face them with courage. She was no longer just running away from danger. She was stepping boldly into a future filled with possibilities and purpose. With every stride taken on horseback and every breeze that brushed against her skin, Clara embraced both parts of her identity, the cultural richness inherited from her lineage and the resilient spirit born from overcoming adversity. The path ahead might be uncertain, but now it gleamed with hope, a path illuminated by the truths they carried together. In this newfound clarity, Clara knew she would continue to forge connections across divides, determined to contribute positively toward shaping a world where all identities could coexist and thrive together in strength.